The meeting took place in the context of an ongoing 4-year war in Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky, often spelled Zelensky, remains the president of Ukraine, a fact confirmed by official sources. Meanwhile, Donald J. Trump is currently serving as president of the United States, having returned to office in January 2025, thereby becoming the 47th president. It is within this setting that the exchange unfolded. Zelensky arrived at the White House with expectation. The Ukrainian leader has made no secret of his country's urgent need for longer-range missiles and advanced drones, tools he regards as decisive in the struggle against the Russian invasion. In the opening moments, as the cameras captured the handshake and the smiles, the atmosphere carried a subtle chill, a sense that the protocols were in place, but the meat of the matter remained unresolved. At one point, a question to President Trump addressed directly the gap between the photo op and the reality. President Trump, sir, do you believe you can convince Vladimir Putin to end the war on Ukraine? The U.S. president didn't promise such a result outright. He smiled, acknowledged the difficulty, and made clear he sees himself in a mediator role. Zelensky did not mince words. He reminded the American side of the technical imbalance. If you want to, and targeting military goal, you need thousands of drones. It goes together with such missiles. Ukraine has such thousands of our production drones, but we don't have Tomahawks. That's why we need Tomahawks. That plea was directed squarely at the United States' reluctance to supply the long-range cruise missiles Ukraine has repeatedly asked for. President Trump referenced that request too. We need Tomahawks, and we need a lot of other things that we've been sending over the last 4 years to Ukraine. So that's one of the things we'll be talking about. And hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about Tomahawks. His phrasing signalled both acknowledgement of the request and an unwillingness to commit publicly to the full extent. In the Q&A, the Ukrainian leader was unambiguous in his assessment of the current state. European support remains vital, but his country does not want to see a split between Europe and the United States. We are in the war, he said. United States support is very important. European leaders, we don't want to divide it. We are on the side to have unity between Europe and the United States. It's important, vital for us later. A reporter asked the American president, "Aren't you concerned that maybe the Russian president is trying to buy himself more time?" Trump paused, then replied wryly, Yeah, I am, but, I've been played all my life by the best of them, and I came out really well. So it's possible. Yeah, there's no deal until there's a deal." Behind the banter lies a deeper posture. Trump is framing himself not just as an ally of Ukraine, but as an impartial negotiator, someone who can interface with both Kyiv and Moscow. He described this meeting with Zelensky and an upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin as separate but equal engagements, meant to give each leader due space and respect. At one point, he said, "I think they're both doing a great job in that sense. We have to get it done. They have tremendous bad blood. It's really what is holding up, I think, a settlement. I think we're going to get it done, and we have to make it long-lasting, as I said, in the Middle East. Everlasting, right, everlasting." In invoking his earlier role in Middle East diplomacy, he signalled ambition for a broad peacemaking role. Yet caution remains. The U.S. president's own summary of the meeting offered no firm military pledges, instead urging an immediate halt to the fighting. They should stop the war immediately. You go by the battle line, wherever it is. Otherwise, it's too complicated. You'll never be able to figure it out. You stop at the battle line, and both sides should go home, go to their families, stop the killing, and that should be it. For Zelensky, the stakes are existential. As his country continues to wage war on its western flank, every day without decisive military support risks the momentum shifting further in Russia's favour. He is not simply seeking weapons, he is signalling that Ukraine is willing to marry its domestic production of drones with Western missiles, presenting a quid pro quo. He wants assurances that Ukrainian-controlled territory will not be negotiated away without the full support of transatlantic allies. For President Trump, the meeting serves a dual purpose. First, it reinforces his self-image as a mediator of high-stakes diplomacy, not merely an American leader, but a global broker. Second, it offers an opportunity to reset U.S. policy toward Ukraine, especially if the U.S. shifts from direct weapons supply to a negotiated settlement role. Observers note that US reluctance to supply advanced missiles appears linked to strategic concerns about being drawn deeper into the war and about how such weapons might affect US stockpiles and broader regional balance. Notably, European leaders are watching closely. They listened as Zelensky emphasized unity. He said US support is very important, but emphasized that Europe must not be sidelined. The upcoming meeting in Hungary, as referenced by Trump, between Trump and Putin, would mark the first time the Russian leader visits an EU country since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. That alone raises questions about the direction of Western diplomacy. This meeting is part of a larger geopolitical jigsaw. Ukraine continues to advance on some fronts. Recent reports suggest its forces have made gains in the Zaporizhzhia region, though independent verification remains difficult. At the same time, Russia appears to be negotiating from a position of caution, potentially using diplomatic overtures to delay or divide the transatlantic coalition. Analysts note that any pause in Western military support could embolden Russia to press further. On the US side, the Trump administration's foreign policy posture has begun to shift. While Ukraine retains a key place in Washington's strategic calculations, Trump's emphasis appears to be on ending the conflict quickly and under terms that avoid further American military escalation abroad. The meeting surfaced this balancing act, showing support yet signaling the US may look for a deal rather than open-ended commitments. Some of the most memorable lines from the meeting reflect an uneasy alliance of urgency and caution. Zelensky, if you want to and targeting military goal, you need thousands of drones too. That's why we need Tomahawks. That statement distills Ukraine's calculation. The war is increasingly technological and long range, and they believe Western cruise missiles could change the math. Trump, we need Tomahawks. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about Tomahawks. He acknowledges the request, but attaches a scenario of de-escalation, suggesting he hopes the weapons may not become necessary. Trump again, they should stop the war immediately. You go by the battle line wherever it is. Both sides should go home, go to their families, stop the killing, and that should be it. This language signals a possible shift from maximum support of Ukraine's territorial objectives toward a more immediate, but potentially partial, ceasefire logic. These statements matter. They underline not only the material gap between Ukraine's needs and Washington's offers, but also the conceptual gap between how each side views the endpoint. For Ukraine, retake as much territory as possible, defeat the invasion. For the US president, end the killing quickly, with Ukraine and Russia agreeing to align and putting the war behind them. Despite the underlying tensions, there was a cordial veneer. A photograph captured a rare moment of levity when the US president complimented Zelensky's attire. And I think it looks beautiful in his jacket. Is it beautiful? He asked. That semblance of good humor should not obscure the fact that the relationship has been rocky. Earlier this year, the two leaders had clashed when military aid was paused. Now they appear to be resetting. Still, the shift remains fragile. Trust is limited, especially when the US president publicly acknowledges he might be played. Zelensky, on the other hand, has little margin for error. His country cannot afford another diplomatic stalemate or delay in weapons deliveries. What comes out of this meeting is yet to be decided. A face-to-face summit between Trump and Putin in Hungary looms. That encounter could reshape the architecture of peace negotiations, but it also raises fears in Kyiv and Europe that Ukraine could be sidelined in a deal that secures a ceasefire without recapturing occupied territory. For Ukraine, the immediate objective is to secure weapons and keep the alliance intact. Zelensky told Europe's leaders right after the meeting, the unity of Europe and the US is very important, vital for us. The risk is that the closer the US comes to a quick deal, the more European skeptics may push for a slower, fuller resolution, one conditioned on Ukraine's terms. For the US, the calculus involves domestic politics, strategic priorities, and war fatigue. Trump wants to project himself as a peacemaker while ensuring the US is not overcommitted. The phrase, "there's no deal until there's a deal," echoes a desire to keep options open. But in diplomacy, options left open can delay results. In the end, this meeting was as much about optics as it was about ordnance. The handshake, the questions, the camera-friendly lines, these reinforce the image of American leadership and Ukrainian urgency. But the substance remains elusive. Weapons remain undelivered. Lines of negotiation remain blurry. Blood continues to be shed. Whether this becomes a turning point or simply another waypoint in a long and bitter war will depend on two things: the follow-through in the days ahead, and whether the promise of unity among Western nations holds firm. And for Zelensky, the message was clear. We don't just want handshakes, we need tomahawks.